There we go. Let's get Facebook in here. We can start the show. Oh, probably should put my mic in front of me, huh? That'd be important. How we sounding, folks? Good? Looking good? Can't help that last one. All right, we're all in here. Good morning. Good morning. It is Monday, the 16th. Happy belated birthday to my wife. It was her birthday yesterday, 29 again. How incredible is that? Eric, good morning to you. How are you doing on this fine and cold out here in Colorado Monday morning?
I am doing all right. I'm very, very tired this morning. It is very windy here, and it kept me up all night. So I'm here. I'm ready to talk football, but I'm very tired.
Well, God bless, man. Nothing to wake you up like that. We're going to try to get Facebook connected again. One of them we had an issue on. If it doesn't work this time, we're just going to say sorry to that Facebook group, and we'll move on from here. It says connected. It said that before, and then it kicked us out. Oh, man. Well, Eric, sorry to hear that you're tired, but nothing to kind of wake you up like, well, first off, fresh cup of coffee. We're going to get you there eventually, man. I can't imagine living in Alaska in the dark and cold and not having coffee to like warm up my soul. Just like you're not very. I don't see you drinking soda pop very often. Like, what are you doing?
Hot chocolate, like energy drinks. So
Rage.
rage. I can't stand the smell of coffee. I can't, or anything like that. When I was really, really young, I actually burned my face really bad by dumping a pot of coffee on my face. I was like 4 years old. And
Wow.
that probably has some reason to do with it.
Oh, God.
But yeah, I mean, I can't even stand the smell. So whenever the wife makes coffee, I'm just like walking around fake gagging just to show my annoyance over even smelling it.
My God, man. I didn't drink it until grad school, and now I'm a half a pot a day kind of guy. I haven't gotten to the point where I need it in the afternoon. I will say when the kid first came, sometimes I did need that like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock one to get me through the rest of the day. But no, man, it's good. What's the best even? You're going to be really upset with me with this one probably, but like coffee ice cream, especially if it's got like crunch in it or something. Oh my God, I love it. Chat, let me know what's up. We're going to say hello to folks in here. We got to make some time for a mock today, Eric, as well. It is Monday, and we got to be a little bit better of getting out of here on time for everybody's coffee related downstream issues, but also saying doing family stuff as we're both fathers of one. Good morning to Denver Luke. Good to see you. He also corrects the spelling of Eric, and a shout out to Denver Luke, because not only is he here on these shows in the morning, he joins us sometimes on the Falcons shows in the morning too, because he just wants some of that sweet mock draft content goodness. So appreciate you, Denver Luke, coming in here. Good morning to you. Always appreciate your bright comments coming in here. Always cheerful. So really do appreciate you, man. Jake coming in and says, good morning, Broncos country. I think we're all disappointed and a little baffled by last week's lack of free agent activity. It's a new this week. Let's hope something good comes to us all. And I thought at first, Eric, it was, a little bit overblown, Troutman, and then you had the Stranad back as well. But when they announced like Dobbins after missing out on the running backs and kind of everything from there, felt like, oh, we really aren't going to do anything. Now, again, I'm not like losing my absolute mind over it, because you brought in like competent players at the positions. It depends on, I guess, what you feel about Adam Troutman. But for more or less, you brought in competent guys, and like I think to the core of like using free agency to make sure you don't have any like gaping holes on your roster as you enter the draft. I think we've accomplished that pretty close to it. It's just bizarre to see a team make literally no outside additions. I mean, I can't think of a situation like this ever. And again, if this was like a team that went, what would it be, 4-13 last year? What the hell? What the hell are you doing? But it is pretty unbelievable to see. And I'm a lot of criticism and eyes are going to be on George Payton, Sean Payton, to see how this works out.
Yeah, so we haven't seen something like this before because it hasn't happened before.
Never? Like not even?
Ever. Well, going back to 2000 anyways.
Okay.
So I've been spending my time digging into this, and because last week I said, like, teams that won the Super Bowl since 2000 or gone to the Super Bowl since 2018, only one team hasn't gone out and made big splashes. So I took it a step further. I went to 2000 and I was looking at the 4 teams who made the championship games. Only 4 of them didn't go on to make big splashes, and the 2022 Chiefs are the only one to make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. But they still added players. They didn't just re-sign all their own guys from the previous season. They still added players in free agency that ended up being a pretty big contributor to their, making the Super Bowl or making the championship game. And Denver last year is one of them. I mean, Talanoa Hufanga was a big piece of that. And honestly, even though he's gone, well, technically he's gone now, but his cap hit will still remain until after June 1st. Dre Greenlaw, Denver probably doesn't beat the Houston Texans without him. Like, so he even had a part in Denver getting to where they were. Evan Ingram, Denver probably doesn't beat the Washington Commanders if it's not for that one big play that he had. So he had a big part in it. So the fact that they've just not added anybody and just brought their own guys back to this extent is completely unheard of. We haven't seen it at all, seen it since at least 2000, probably earlier. I'm just not going to take more time digging into before that, because information before that part is a lot more spotty as well. So it's just something that's unheard of. We'll see if it works out for them. And to be clear here, as much as I've criticized them and, some of it serious, some of it joking out there on Twitter, there are still for guys available that Denver can go get. It's not like the free agent market is completely, wiped out. Some positions are, but there's still guys out there they can go look at, they can go get. I'm sure they've been looking at some of them. And a lot of some of these guys who are older veterans, they might be, sitting back, waiting until closer to training camp, because a lot of veterans, they don't like to go through all the May and June organized team activities and all that stuff like that. They'll wait till camp and they sign closer to there. But so we'll see. Denver still has a chance, but up to this point, the fact they've done nothing is so unique. It's never been done before.
And we got Trace Moustakis coming in here. Any relationship to pitcher Mike Moustakas, who has former Cardinal and quite the mustache? Says, "Morning, boys." Morning to you, Trace. He says, "I trust the moves behind the scenes. Denver Broncos for life." It's kind of, again, I think big picture, Eric, Denver wasn't going to be able to, probably for the most part, wasn't going to be able to make a move that would be, catching on the Richter scale, if you would. Now there's some big trades that maybe could happen still, I guess, for Denver. But overall, I just have a really hard time getting too worked up about it, because the results have been so good about this from this team and this regime ever since Sean Payton got here. And I can think of a few instances where I'm like, I don't buy that. First off was Bo Nix at 12. I mean, you guys can go back. I thought he was a day 2 quarterback. Prove me wrong. What an idiot. That Oregon offense, the gumdrops and lollipops, whatever the heck they're doing there with all the screens and whatnot, was pretty hard to evaluate some of it. And again, am I saying he's the best quarterback from that class or anything? No. Was he worth 12 overall, though? Emphatically, yes. Honestly, if there was a redraft of that class, he's going top 4. And the other 3 are quarterbacks. Maybe he's going 1, but he's going top 4. So great on that one. And then there was the quote 2 years ago where he talked about the team, maybe even the last year. There's a couple instances where he said, like, we're going to win this many games with a rookie quarterback, come with a dead cap hit from Russell Wilson. I've never lost, what was it, more than 7 or something, more than 9? Doubtful. I think this is going to be a team picking top 5, top 10. They make the freaking playoffs. And last year he said that this is one of the 5 best teams he's ever coached, and he has Super Bowl aspirations. Yeah, we'll see, Sean. I mean, on the doorstep. So again, we'll see after the fact, maybe years down the line, if there's a little bit of issues behind the scene here coming from this. I get you got everybody airs their dirty laundry after things fall apart. But for now, I'm concerned. I will criticize, but I do trust the regime in charge still all the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, especially guys in our position, like doing, these shows and stuff like that, we can criticize. It doesn't mean we don't trust them. I'm very questioning their process to this point, but they've given enough leeway to be like, okay, maybe this works out. It's why in a lot of articles when I've talked about this, and I've tried to say this when we've been live, is time will tell. Time is going to tell if this blows up in their face or if it works out and they're back where they were last year. I have my doubts about that being able to happen because, when you get this close, one injury away, they weren't able to overcome that injury. You typically want to add those key pieces, betting on the draft to do it from a coaching staff that has proven that they don't really care to play rookies outside of necessity, which Bo Nix is really the only one. I question it, but you know what? Maybe it works out for them. Maybe it is, the big difference this year from last year is Davis Webb. Maybe him calling plays is what really unlocks his offense. And, we get so much improvement out of them. Maybe it's just yet another year in the scheme for a lot of these guys. Even somebody like Talanoa Hufanga, who just was here last year. Maybe that helps unlock, takeaways on the defensive side of the ball a little bit. So there's still stuff that they can improve on. And just with what the pieces they had, it's just so unheard of to bet on getting back to where you were and taking that next step without adding that big piece yet. And again, maybe they still can. There are still guys out there. We'll have to wait and see if they do. But for now, it's just it's so unknown that I think that's pushing a lot of people to be a little bit over dramatic about it.
Yeah, and I mean that's fandom to the extent as well. So you're gonna feel how you feel, as long as you're not harassing people or there's a line, obviously, and we've seen it online. Mark, one of the two things is going to happen: either they prove us they're insanely smarter than all of us, or it all blows up in their faces. I think they have enough of the key pieces and core established with a quarterback who avoids the negative plays, and enough good coaching as well, that I think the overall process and pieces in place can make the floor still incredibly high. The thing that's unfortunate, Eric, is that I've said it on here before, they could lose more games than last season. They could not go as far this season just because, circumstances, injuries, blah, 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 just a tougher matchup that they end up losing a 50-50 game that could have easily lost that Bills game. That all could happen. And people will say, oh, that's a worse team. See, it was a failure. And in reality, it was a better team. And I mean, at the end of the day, all that really matters is the hardware you hold up. But I mean, I'll go to my grave saying that 2012 Broncos team with Peyton Manning and that top 5 defense on the other side was better than the 2015 and 2013 one. But, in a single elimination tournament, bleep happens sometimes. So we'll see. Big picture here, though. I mean, the team still is in good shape. Rob, good to see you. Says, good morning. Happy to catch you guys live. Today's a great day to trade for AJB post June 1st. It does not sound to me, Eric, that the Broncos are one of the serious contenders for AJ Brown. Now, of course, maybe that changes. But for now, it does seem like Rams and Patriots are the teams. And maybe there's, splash either direction there. But it does not seem like Denver is all in on AJ Brown.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if Rob is meaning it this way or not, but just in case, you can't trade for a player prior to June 1st and have it be post June 1st. If you're going to trade for somebody to have it count as a June 1st, it has to be afterwards. It's not like cuts where you can designate a cut for that later, where the roster cap still sits on, or the cap hit still hits on the salary cap until after June 1st. A trade happens, it happens. All that changes. It can't be designated later. But the Eagles are all, by all accounts and all reports, are now waiting until that June 1st day to make any trade. And they don't have a timetable anymore. That timetable was there with a little bit with Dallas Goedert, who they ended up getting a new deal done. So that time restraint that they had, it's no longer there. So they're kind of sitting there and waiting. And yeah, the Patriots are still very much in it and monitoring the situation. The Rams are still very much monitoring the situation. We'll wait and see. It's probably going to happen closer to June 1st, just because, or after June 1st, because the Eagles wanting to spread out that cap hit. I don't expect Denver to be involved.
And the big thing here also, maybe this is just cope from me, Eric, to some extent, but let's say Denver didn't make the big splash free agency. Doesn't sound like they're going to be making a big March trade. You still have the draft, where it could be a trade up the board that is exciting. It could be a trade for a veteran. It could be, God, with how good the JFM trade was, and even some other trades I can think of. was it Joe Thuney to the Bears last season? I mean, like there is a market discrepancy. Is that the wrong word? You can get really good ROI if you can trade day 3 picks for veterans. And granted, maybe some of that isn't exciting for Denver to some extent, because like how much would a day 3 pick for a wide receiver really move the needle when you're having to give up a 2nd round pick for the likes of DJ Moore? I don't know. That's probably more draft or a big move. But like running back, linebacker, tight end, safety. I mean, these are spots where potentially you could see somebody come in with, or defensive line, again, just like JFM, that somebody comes in and fits a little better, that you're giving up your 5th round pick, 2 of your 7ths. Denver has 3 7ths, I think, on the PFF simulator. So there's still plenty of options to add moves. And also the other thing is, I think now the Super Bowl or not, well, I think we can question that, Eric, but are you expecting this team to be in the contention window come the trade deadline? I am. Like, maybe you're not first place in the AFC. You're going to have a chance to make an aggressive move then as well to add somebody. Maybe it is Breece Hall. I don't know what A-Chain's contract is like, or Waddle, but maybe that new regime is looking to move those guys at that point. Maybe you're circling around to the Falcons with Bijan or Drake London. I mean, you're going to have a chance, in theory, come the trade deadline, assuming you are a team that is a buyer. And even though, Singleton, Troutman, Strnad, Dobbins is not like invigorating the fan base, I definitely think that's something that people need to keep perspective on. Like, this is just one point in time where you can add talent, and it's the one where it's the most open. You have to give up the least to do it. But with where Denver is at exactly, you're treading in some water, and that's not exciting, but you're going to have opportunities coming up still to add talent.
Yeah, I mean, there's key point when you look at the calendar of the NFL cycle. There's key dates. That first week of free agency, that's that big free agent frenzy where a lot of people get a lot of money. Then after that, things quiet down. You have the NFL draft, about the week before to it, and about a couple days afterwards. That's when you get some of those trades, guys moving veterans because they drafted a replacement for them, things like that. Then right before the season starts, about that final week with roster cut downs, and even up to that point, then right about around the trade deadline. Those are the 4 points where a lot of teams, really look to get active with what they're doing in terms of trades and stuff like that. And Denver very well could be active. Yeah. I wouldn't expect anything for a running back unless it's near the trade deadline and Dobbins is hurt, or right before the season and Dobbins is hurt. Adding a running back all depends on Dobbins' health.
Outside of the draft.
Yeah, outside of using a draft pick on a running back.
Yeah.
And then you had, but wide receiver, they were in on a wide receiver this last year. Jalen Waddle, Miami ultimately backed out of it, not Denver. And now Miami with the new regime, they're saying, no, he's a building block of ours. We're going to work on a new deal with him. And that's all that. But there's still other options out there. And we don't know what things are going to look like come that trade deadline point with, tight end, wide receiver. Those are probably the 2 positions I would expect them to look at the most. But it all depends on how things go between now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say hello to a lot of folks. Keith, good to see you. Good morning. We got Michael Ronquillo in the house. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well, Michael. Appreciate you always coming in. Dave Glassman in the house as well, always killing it. Mark's sipping that coffee too. Coffee is king. Broncos Tube comes in and says Waddle is a fool. He's talking about the PS2 Waddle stuff. They're just teammates jawing at each other, having fun in the offseason. If you and I were in those positions, I'd probably be doing public shots at you as well, just trying to goat you into a response for fun. Anyway, I don't even know what I would say. But yeah, exclusive music says it was a joke with friends and old teammates. It's not a big deal. They're just having fun with each other. They're buddies. I'm sure they're texting each other immediately afterwards in the group chat with the guys as well, because that's how it be. David, good to see us. Says good morning, Jensen Broncos country. Everyone leave a like. Appreciate the PSA there. Everyone leave a like. Facebook, wherever. I know we've had Facebook issues today. I'm going to try it maybe one more time here, even though I think it's probably not happening for us today on that Facebook stream. But, it is what it is. Some days it's Monday. Maybe Facebook needs coffee as well. Good to see you. Big time super chat coming in from Troy Boer. Thank you so much, Troy. Appreciate you. Summit. Okay, he's not going to say hi. For $50, you better say hi, Summit. Says, often miss you guys live, but listen, afterwards, during free agency, when talent just shuffles around, most every team thinks they got better, downplay player losses and overvalue additions. I still hope we add some skill guys. I think if your skill guy pathways are either a big trade maybe for a tight end or a wide receiver, I think I mean, who are they, Nick? I don't know, but I think on paper that's an area that you could still see addressed, but most likely will be the draft until you come to either that before the season kicks off trade line that you talked about there, Eric, or the trade deadline. But yeah, everybody wants more skill position guys. Looking at the roster, the two spots that I see that still seem like, oh yeah, obvious pathway to add a veteran player is the interior defensive line, which Denver's been linked to some guys as well, and maybe safety. That's the other one. It's like, and maybe you also could bring in like an Alex Singleton when he first came to Denver level contract at linebacker. You know, what would it be at this point? 1 year, $5 million, something like that, where it's like, okay, we're taking a shot here just to add linebacker 3 to the room. And obviously that can hit. I mean, long term, that was a great addition by the Broncos, considering they gave up practically nothing, and you found serviceable, war zero player at linebacker. But skill players, you're probably talking draft, and man, unfortunately, Eric and Troy, last year was the year probably to swing harder than they did at running back and tight end. I think you got wide receiver options this year. And I'm not against it. I know there's some people, Eric, in Broncos country that are like, oh man, you're already so deep at wide receiver. What about the rotation and the snaps for these guys? Be better. Like, best guy wins. And we already saw this regime trade Devon Vele a year after drafting him and getting good ROI. So like, is anybody in that room keeping me from adding a wide receiver I like, considering how valuable they are and how expensive they are on the open market? No, not close. Anywhere in the draft, I'm looking to add wide receiver because they are that valuable.
Yeah, and you actually kind of hit on a couple of things with the free agent frenzy over. Denver still said to be on on players. One of them is a wide receiver. They've still been very heavily linked to Juwan Jennings. They've been linked with a couple running backs still, but these are running backs that they're looking at competing with like Jaleel McLaughlin and Tyler Bidet for that bottom spot. If we're getting somebody to be there with, Dobbins and Harvey, that's probably coming in the draft. Defensive line, it's been touched, but not super bad. There's still a good amount of guys left available on the defensive line. Linebacker, there's still some guys out there that are probably maybe a little bit more than the Alex Singleton contract, but not much. Part of that being is just, inflation, the cap inflation, how much it's grown since then, and how much linebacker cost has grown since then. My God, it's nearly tripled since the time Singleton signed his deal. And then safety. There was somewhere that they were kind of linked with a couple of these safety that signed elsewhere, not necessarily to the point of offering a contract, but at least engaging interest. It does seem like there's a very real possibility that Brandon Jones has played his last down in Denver. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think they'll cut him without somebody viable in town to replace him, and that player could come in the draft as well. I still think they'd want to look for a option as that third safety to come in and compete with the Devin Key with losing PJ Locke, but those are all guys that they're still supposedly, allegedly, reportedly, whatever word you want to throw out there, looking at free agents for, and we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But they still have interest. And one thing that I see a lot is people saying Denver doesn't have even any interest in any of these guys or no interest in making moves. That's not true. They have had a lot of interest. It just hasn't panned out. I mean, David Montgomery, they had a deal on the table. Texans outbid them for it. They were very much in on Breece Hall, but the Jets ended up tagging him. They were in on Travis Achan, and he decided to say, nope, I'm going back home to New Orleans. There's been a bunch of the guys, 3 receivers they were in on that ended up signing elsewhere. Like, they've had a lot of interest. They just haven't been able to get the deal done.
Yeah, no doubt. It is interesting. Denver's had such a hard line. It almost feels like they have the contract lines from like 4 years ago when the cap was that. But I'm okay with them. I mean, it's really tough, Eric, because like, are there any wide receivers out there that really would have moved the needle that were available in free agency? That is, I don't know. You probably have more upside with the guys that you have in house already, but I think it would have raised the floor, obviously. But maybe kick somebody out if you bring somebody in. And then at tight end, I would have really liked to have Charlie Kolar or Bellinger, or I mean, even if you signed Otten, just because Ingram did so little for me last season, like really pissed me off watching the offense with him on the field. Let's just call it as it is. But I think there is a position to have a pretty hard and fast line. It's running back. And that seems to be the spot where the Broncos were like most likely to spend. So again, when you step back, I kind of understand how it played out this way. It's just, it feels bizarre to have every, A, B, C choice opening the door, and it's just retaining your guys when you go through enough doorways to where we're at right now. But we'll see. Eric, if you had to choose, though, the next position the Broncos add a player, is it interior defensive line? We saw that a guy that we liked, Sebastian Joseph Day, 2-year, $20 million, something like that. Probably, I'd have been interested in, maybe 2-year, $18 million, $16 million, but the 10 for somebody like that, I've maybe just bring in Calais Campbell or Cam Jordan or somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think defensive line makes the most sense. I mean, you're betting on a guy who played 33 snaps last year to jump all the way to replacing almost 600 snaps with John Frankenmeyers. And Uwazurika, he plays a factor in there, and he played a little bit under 500. He was like 467 or something like that. And so he's in line to get some of those snaps, probably earlier downs, but it's still a big jump for Savion Jones. And with how long defensive linemen typically take, unless you are like at a early first round pick, it typically takes a while for you to come in and make that major impact. I would like to have that veteran depth there just to go in, somebody who can come in and start, be okay as being that second guy in the rotation, still use Uwazurika as you did last year, and just provide that extra insurance if Savion Jones isn't ready to start. And I can't imagine with what Denver has done in previous years that they're not at least considering or looking at or reaching out to some of these veteran defensive linemen and seeing just gauging their interest at the very least in kind of that kind of role of being, maybe you're the second guy behind Savion Jones, maybe you're the starter. We want him out there if he's ready. If he's not ready, then it's you. And not all guys are going to be interested in that, but it's at least probably worth some calls just to see if they are.
Yeah, I'm 1,000% with you. We got a $10 super chat coming in from Camden. Says, "What's up, Broncos country? The draft coming up. Is there anyone in the later rounds that could be a major contributor to the offense at running back or wide receiver?" I mean, there's always going to be players the later rounds that hit. I would say that wide receiver probably less likely, but running back, I mean, for sure, Eric, there's going to be some late round running backs who could end up being big time hits or contributors. When I think late round, sometimes I really think of more like niche kind of guys, just to more find like a more obvious path. So I know we've been big on Riley Nikowski. I'm not going to get the name right. Fullback. Yeah, fullback, tight end type. I mean, he's going to be niche. He might push out Adkins, but like with the contract that Adkins got, oh well, like, useful player, but like, is he keeping you from improving the position there for like an H-back, fullback? No. Or Prentice, for that matter. So that's somebody like that. Late round running backs right now. I mean, I'll be honest, Eric, again, with where I'm at in life, I'm not here at the 5th, 6th, 7th round, as deep as I was, a few years ago. But if somebody like Seth McGowan falls to the 5th round because of the background stuff, he's somebody who could, he's definitely talented. He just had that felony charge and was in prison for a little bit. You just have to overlook that fact. But, people change. And I am a believer in second chances as well. Maybe not thirds, but second chances. So it all depends on the line and everything. Then there are some things that are unforgivable. But I digress, Eric. Any late round running backs right now? I think Benjamin Albright's got everybody up and excited about that Navy kind of gadget guy as well. But sorry, you've made that face out loud, Eric. I'm just kind of thinking of some late round guys that maybe could be interesting.
Yeah, Eli Heidenreich, he's a slot guy. Like he's a slot.
I have one guy. The Clemson guy, Adam Randall.
Adam Randall.
Yes.
The former wide receiver who has moved to running back because he can't catch, and it shows that running back. That guy.
Yes. But like big running back, and you're talking late round. I mean, give me the athlete. He's got a chance.
Yeah, I actually like him. It's just funny to me watching him, knowing he's a former wide receiver and he still has such an issue catching the ball. And it's like, that's why he's no longer a wide receiver. It's not because they felt he could do better at running back. It's because he just couldn't catch the ball. But I do like him. He does play with a little bit of power, and he actually has some pretty decent footwork for a guy his size as well. But it's funny you asked this over the weekend as well, on top of, looking into the previous things. I actually started putting together my big board and position rankings. So at running back, if we're talking, day 3, those later picks, one guy that I really like is Chip Trayanum out of Toledo. He actually carries a 6. Wasn't invited to the combine. Had an excellent shrine game. He's a big dude, like 225, 220 to 230 pounds. He was 12th in design runs over 10 plus yards and 12th in design run breakaway yards, breakaway gains of 15 plus in college football last year. I know a lot of people are hyped up about that Nebraska back. He actually had more in both of those than that Nebraska back, who was a lot smaller. He's like 5'9" and 200 pounds and ran slow. But Chip Trayanum out of Toledo, Robert Henry, if you're looking for another kind of explosive kind of guy out of UTSA. I can't remember what game it was, but there is one game of his against one of the better teams where he absolutely just went off. They lost the game, but it wasn't because of him. He absolutely killed it. And those, I mean, you mentioned Randall, Tranum, McGowan, and I would just mention Henry. And you brought up Eli Heidenreich, who is with running backs, and though I think he's going to be a receiver. All 6-round grades for me right now. Mm-hmm. Roman Hemby, the other Indiana running back, I like Kalen Black a little bit more.
I was going to say Kalen Black. Yep.
Kalen Black for me has a 5th. Roman Hemby has a 7th round grade. Noah Whittington, he has a 7th out of Oregon. Like these are all guys that kind of interesting for that point.
You took my names. Noah Whittington was one of them. Was impressed. Now, granted, running backs typically are only ever as good as the offensive line, and that Oregon offensive line was pretty ridiculous this season on the whole. But he was really impressive when I watched them. And then you mentioned Black from Indiana as well. Those two, I mean, again, I watch a lot of Big Ten football. And those two really did stand out as ones that, they weren't special enough that I'm like, oh yeah, day 2, but you're talking 5th, 6th round, come in, be a running back 3, maybe even a running back 2. Those ones stood out to me.
And Whittington, just real quick, he probably had the best run of the season. I can't remember what game it was, but he broke through 6 different guys' tackles on his way to the end zone. It was just an absolute amazing run. I wish I could remember what game it was.
And he's 5'8", 210,
205. Yeah, he's not an overly big guy either.
No, but he's stocky and he's played with good balance. Black was really good as well. I mean, just tough runners.
Whittington is what I like to call a bowling ball. Yes. Small, compact player that just that can bounce off guys.
Yep, you just kind of see him shrug off the legs a bit as if you don't come square. So both of those guys, those are probably my 2. I mean, I remember 2 months ago, Eric, we were talking. I'm like, man, Mike Washington, round 4, maybe he's up over that now.
Round 2?
Yeah, I don't know about round 2, but I mean, we'll see. Explosive playmaker. But I'm saying for me, for in general, yes. But I'm just also, what's
how I was about Price, right? That you gave me so much crap over.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way with both those guys. It's I could get it round 2. It's just, I guess 62, whatever they're going to be picking. Do you have Washington over Price?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. I know you're not alone. I mean, there's some out there who think Washington should be a top 40 pick. So we'll,
not there yet.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Pretty crazy. I mean, that Arkansas team, man, they got some athletes, but they just cannot play freaking football. It shows pretty good indicator. Same with South Carolina. You can have really good, fun quarterback play, athletes, skill position player. If you're not very good on the offensive line, it does not freaking matter if you are good at skill positions. So Denver Luke said it was Minnesota for that Noah run. Maybe it was.
That sounds right, yeah.
The Gophers up there. Moving forward, Eric, I think probably no mock draft today. We can get one for Friday just because I want to save some time. Maybe we can go through one quickly. We'll see. But I want to go, instead of ranking the biggest positions of need Denver still has, just go position by position and just kind of talk about it here. And first up would be quarterback. Quarterback's a weird one. Obviously not necessarily a need for the Broncos, but I'm of the position, especially with how the backup quarterback market has risen over the last few years, that if you see somebody that you can develop into a quality player available to you, I'm not against it at any point. Now, I know there's the odds of hitting on a quarterback later on is low, but the ROI you get on hitting on a quarterback is massive. So if Sean Payton or Davis Webb likes a guy, take him. I know that there's some big Cole Payton fans out there. I see Cole Payton right now. We just talked about Arkansas. Taylon Green's an incredible athlete. Drew Aller, I mean, I know he's got that, not the helmet scout here, but the Christian Hackenberg first guy off the bus. This guy's central casting. And then you watch him throw. It's what's going on here? I mean, maybe talk about, I see Denver Luke also mentioning Taysom Hill 2.0. Maybe that's Mark Gronowski out of Iowa for that kind of big role, running goal line quarterback type as well. But quarterback, we'll see what happens with Jarrett Stidham. They brought back Ellinger, but he doesn't keep me from doing things. It all just depends on, I guess, the market for Stidham. First off, like if somebody's offering you a third-round pick, see you, Jarrett. Enjoy New York. I don't know, Minneapolis. But after that, it's just, I'm never against taking a shot. If you think a guy can even be a serviceable backup, that's good ROI.
I am in the belief that every single year you should draft a quarterback and sign an undrafted free agent at quarterback every year. And you go out there, you let them compete. Obviously, the undrafted free agent, if they do enough, then you do what you can to keep them around. If not, oh well, they're an undrafted rookie. You can move on from them. And then draft pick doesn't have to be early. Most of these guys you're hoping are 6th, 7th round picks. And you go out there and you try to showcase them in preseason, either see if they can develop into that backup guy, in which case you keep them, or see if they can sit there and get at least a round up draft pick. So 7th round pick, get a 6th round pick offered to you via trade, or 5th if they're a 6th round pick. I'm in that mindset. Always with quarterbacks. Always draft one. Always sign as a free agent. The position is just way too valuable not to, and it's so easy to get a return on investment off of it. And that's just the mindset that needs to be had. Looking at Denver situation with Jarrett Stidham, he possibly can be moved. Ellinger's contract, well, that's what I like to refer to as a compete contract. You were going to bring somebody in, you're going to make them compete with Ellinger. Best man wins, best man sticks around. Probably as that third quarterback on the practice squad, but they still manage to stick around. So go do that. Maybe it is Cole Payton. Maybe it's Mark Gronowski. Maybe it is Sawyer Robinson out of Baylor, he's a big dude who can surprisingly run well. Maybe it is a situation with Sean Payton where he's looking for that Taysom Hill 2.0 type player, which in that case, Cole Payton would probably be the best bet for it. But Haynes King, he's another good athlete at the position. Had a little bit of a better arm than I expected, but not the best one, but it's a workable arm. If he really wants a smart guy, then maybe Luke Altmaier out of Illinois. Like there's options out there in that 6th, 7th round for Denver to look at to get that quarterback to come in and compete and see what they can bring.
1,000%, man. Moving forward here, running back, I mean, we're going to talk about a lot. This is the Broncos' most pressing need, just as far as roster ability and going forward, just because Dobbins is such an obviously injury risk, and Taysom Hill, or not, excuse me, God, RJ Harvey, just reading Taysom Hill here in the chat. RJ Harvey did not show to be a consistent down-to-down runner last season, and it was one of the 3 big takeaways I took from Sean Payton this offseason that pissed him off. One of them was wide receiver drops, one of them was takeaways, and the other one was the run game in general. Now, the run game is probably a little bit more nuanced. I wish I could sit down and talk with Sean Payton because they were like one of the most explosive run games early on, and they lost that completely in the second half. And you got to be explosive rushing the football. I mean, you want to be explosive and consistent, but explosive plays are so key. You got to figure out how to get that as well. But we just don't know if RJ Harvey can be that guy yet. And I don't really love going in. Like if Denver was a team that's, borderline playoff this upcoming season, like you could figure it out. Like, it's just like, okay, hopefully we hit with him. Stakes are too high, I think, right now for this team to be totally dependent on what we saw from RJ Harvey last season and with Dobbins. So this is the biggest need. I don't love going into the draft and being like, we have to take one day 2 and what is probably the thinnest day 2 running back crop I can remember in a decade. But I mean, that's kind of the corner you backed yourself into right now.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that I was doing my position rankings. I have 3 that are in the top 3 rounds. Like,
is Price one of them?
Price is one of them. I have a 3rd round pick. I've been pretty consistent with that. He's a 3rd round pick for me. I think at one point he was like on that cusp of like 3rd, 4th, but but yeah, it's tough because they kind of pigeonhole themselves in there, and they do believe in Harvey taking that next step. And I think one point of evidence of that is the fact that they didn't want to go that extra little bit to get Achane from as a free agent from the Jaguars. Part of why they didn't, that 13 million on average per year basis to 10 million. Like that seems to be why. And then Dobbins' contract as well. It doesn't prohibit them if Harvey does end up taking that big step. And even if Dobbins stays healthy, well, they can then move on from Dobbins with no guaranteed money and turn to Harvey. So they do seem to have a lot of faith in him, and a lot more faith in him than I do. He had really good vision coming into the NFL, and it's like all gone. When watching him last year, vision was such an issue, and then being overly patient. There were holes open, and he would just sit there waiting for that big hole to go in and make that big explosive run. He's really got to learn to take what's given to him, and it's not all his fault. Tight ends absolutely stunk in the block game, and I said this before, is like if you go back and you watch the run game as a whole over the course of the season, I'd say about probably 80% of the runs that were blown up behind the line of scrimmage, it's the tight end's fault, if not 90%. It was a lot. It was the vast majority of it. So it's not all his fault, but it's the one position where you still want to add another guy to compete with him. You're going to do that for the draft, and you have to do something to make it to where McLaughlin and Bidet aren't your running backs 4 and 5. You got to bring in competition for them to either push them to get better, and hopefully they do, or go get guys that are like, all right, they're here to push them off the roster.
Oh man. Yep. It's we'll see how it plays out, man. With the running back position. Wide receiver is the interesting one. Very, very much so for me, just because the room is not full necessarily, but like you are, if you bring in somebody in free agency, as you mentioned, I mean, somebody getting kicked out. I mean, a year ago, you talk about trading Devon Vele, and he had a kind of a cult following. People would have been up in arms, and you draft somebody, they try to bring in Stephon Diggs. I don't think that's happening now, but wide receiver is one where it could go either way. They could make a big trade. They could sign somebody. They could draft somebody early. They could draft somebody late. They could do nothing at it, and I could understand it. But it is a position where not to the extent to me as like wide receiver or offensive line and defensive line, where like they need to be the basis of your team, in my opinion. But it, like I talked about earlier, it's a valuable enough position that you should be looking every year. And I think it's a pretty deep crop as well. And there's some really interesting mid-round developmental athletes as well, that maybe it's a flyer for a season. Maybe depending on how they do, you kick somebody out as well. But I'm thinking of Lance out at North Dakota State. There was the, I can't remember the Ty Montgomery, maybe. Big athlete as well. Hurst from Georgia State, really, really interesting. Some of these smaller school guys, of course, but those all make sense. I mean, Denver ended up taking Boston or Concepcion or somebody round one. Maybe Jordan Tyson falls and you make a slight trade up. I mean, there's a lot of avenues for this team at wide receiver, and I think every single one makes sense.
Yeah, the one thing here that I'm curious about with is what are they looking at in terms of a contract for Marvin Mims? Because if they're looking at trying to get him on cheap side, because returner contracts aren't overly expensive. So if they're looking at just trying to get him on the cheap and then really trying to unlock him on offense and just continue to use him as a gadget, maybe it is a cheap deal on him and a little bit less usage this year. But yeah, wide receiver, there's a lot of avenues here because again, you have Cortland Sutton, who's not necessarily guaranteed to be here in 2027. You have the fact that they traded Devon Vele after the season he had as a rookie. So that means that Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant aren't necessarily safe. I would say Pat Bryant a little bit more so as that third round pick, that, that cutoff of a top 100 pick to not, that's a pretty big distinction there. Even Troy Franklin being an early 4th round pick, still different. So you have that option of a trade, trying to get that positive return value on them in some form. Are you going to get it like Devon Vele, where you got a 4th round pick from? No, but you look at that. That's an avenue for it to try to free up some snaps if there's a long jam. So it could be a veteran, it could be a rookie. There's just so many avenues for them that they can go with at wide receiver, and they could choose to take none of them, and all of them make sense, as you said. Any way that they go with wide receiver, it'd be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's wide open right now, which is exciting. Tony comes in and says wide receivers and need Sutton's last season. You could maybe say the same thing about Mike McGlinchey, right? Or some of these other Riley Moss. And depending on how the board falls, like maybe you go that direction. But wide receiver is a long-term need, especially for that, guy you can build the plane out of. But he's still, Sutton's a very good X and a top 30 wide receiver in the NFL. We got to clean up those drops this year, Court. But he's still a good player. Tight end, also flashing red light need for this team. Again, you're going in there with what you had last season, and just everybody's a year older. It's a position that'd be great to add some talent, but it's just not as talented as last season, and I don't think there's as many Ys that I am infatuated with in this class. So there are some, smaller kind of hybrid options. And again, Ingram, like I said earlier, hopefully this doesn't get us in trouble. He pisses me off. So like if you bring in Max Clare or one of these kind of hybrid body types, then God bless. I get it. Ingram's last season as well, this year coming up here. So it all makes sense to me. It just really comes down to the talent. But man, I would really love to add another Y where we can just get a little bit more block presentation, if you will, with our 12 personnel, so that way we can spam play action shots and hit some vertical explosives.
You want that math changer, that guy who can line up in line and change the way that they have to do the math on the defensive side of the ball. Ingram's not that, and there's not a lot of guys that do that in this class. It was funny. I actually saw this list of the best blockers in the draft, and Justin Jolie was one of them. I'm like, that's not a great one. Fortunately, guys like Nate Borkercher and Will Kasmarek were on it, and those are probably two of the top 3 blockers in this class. Maybe 2 of the top 5. So there's options there. A lot of these guys, obviously, they're going to need a little bit more development with it. I think if you want a guy to come in and make that instant impact, it's one of those 2 guys I just said, Borkercher or Kasmarek. Everybody else, I think, needs a little bit more development. They may not offer enough in the receiving game to really truly be math changers. If you're looking for that, you're probably looking for Raridan or even Oscar Delp if you're okay with the medicals. I know that at the combine they found the foot fracture, but from what I understand, it's a lot more concerning than just the foot fracture. It's his body took a beating at Georgia, and a lot of it is not great. So that'll have to be checked out. And obviously medicals, they vary team to team. So there's guys out there that can be those math changers, but it's tough because there's not many of them. I would say there's probably 5 true math changers in this class, guys who can offer enough as a receiver and enough as a blocker. It is mostly those big slots, though. Some of them can be a little bit better in blocking in the slot than Ingram, but it's not a great class at tight end for what Denver needs. And that's part of what makes what they did at tight end such a concern. And who knows, maybe that part of their avenue is going out and still getting David Njoku.
Oh, man, we'll see, man. We'll see. Moving forward here, offensive line. Talked about it earlier. Offensive line is a need every season. This team has not drafted an offensive tackle since, if you really want to be, snooty about it, the real answer is Dalton Reisner because he played tackle and then moved inside. But it's Garrett Bowles. I'm saying being snooty, Eric. But the answer is Garrett Bowles, and where that's coming up on 9 years now, almost a decade. I believe it was the 2017 draft where he was taken. So it's definitely something the Broncos could do. McGlinchey's, I'll knock on wood here, but he has been healthy so far. And obviously you do have Palczewski who can play guard / tackle. Not a long-term option, in my opinion, but 6th or 7th offensive lineman, you could do worse. But offensive tackle is one, especially Garrett Bowles' age as well, McGlinchey's age. It would really piss off a lot of Broncos fans. But if you see one who's a decade-long option, in your opinion, swing. Somebody mentioned in the chat, and I know it's more of a franchise quarterback, superstar quarterback perspective, but the best way to win a championship is continuously knock on the door. And the way offensive tackles are found, let's say McGlinchey's released or Bowles retires this season, you're left with your you-know-what in your hand, and it's almost like you have to make a round 1 move for that position. Otherwise, you're skunked for the next season. And we've seen what bad offensive tackle play can do for an entire offense. So interior offensive line too, you got Powers, we'll see long-term, but tackle's the one where it's I'm never going to be upset if they take one early, especially if it's a hit.
Yeah. And with this is got to remember that with Sean Payton, even before the NFL kind of joined him, Sean Payton was very much, we have our left side backup and our right side backup. Even going back to his early days in New Orleans, and I actually found an interview for him not long after he was hired there. that was some of the stuff that he picked up from Bill Parcells. Is you want your offensive linemen to be adequate or be good enough on the side, not necessarily tackle on both sides. And that's I say that because Alex Palczewski, obviously, he was the fourth option for them at left guard. They preferred him as that right side backup, and it's from what I've gathered, that seems to be what they want from him again. Betting on Nick Argiulio getting healthy and being that left side, that left guard backup. So when you talk about tackle in this class, obviously, as you said, Bowles and McGlinchey, both of them, how their contracts are. This very well could be their last year in Denver. So we'll see how that is. And so talking about tackle is, can this guy also play guard as well and be kind of that cross-trained left side backup at least this year? Because again, as you mentioned with Ben Powers, he is coming off an injury. And I mean, he played some games with it, and he did really well for Denver last year. He was top 16 when he was out there on the field in a lot of blocking metrics. So very good year from him. Not quite worth what he's getting, but hey, they've been pretty adamant they want him as a starter this year. They said they weren't going to touch the contract, but they did. It was a very minuscule touch, but they just turned a $500,000 roster bonus that was due yesterday into his base salary for the year that won't guarantee until the first week of the season. Which if they do cut or trade him, it just saves them $500,000 against that cap. That's minuscule in NFL terms. So maybe you go get that tackle, like just say Caden Proctor. It could be anybody. Maybe it's Jennings Dunker. Maybe it's somebody that they view can play guard as well. Then that also opens up the door. We're going to move on from Powers anyways, even though we've said what we said about it, and we're going to put them there at guard. They've done well enough, and then we're going to look at moving them out tackle. It still creates that need at left guard, but you still have that tackle, and you're getting them out there on the field. So there's plenty of avenues again with tackle with the way they can go and still have them on the field this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, this year and long term, and you're also an injury away. I think not enough people, and having KAD and in-house changes the perspective a bit, but you went undefeated last season when Patrick Surtain was injured. I don't know if that's the reality for Garrett Bowles going down or Mike McGlinchey as well. So while it isn't like the obvious path forward, you are one injury away from that position immediately being an issue. And I think there's some positions where like you can't really do that argument. Probably quarterback is one. Like, oh, you're one injury away from Bo Nix. Yeah, but he's one guy, and it's so hard to find that. You're not taking a backup quarterback there. But offensive tackle, especially with rotating and the age of that room, it makes a lot of sense. Jason O'Neill says, haven't expressed a lot this morning, but I've listened with an open mind at all possible outcomes. Insightful content this morning. Killed it. You have. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm really busy with stuff, Eric, so I'm not listening around to Broncos country too much on the airwaves or, reading too much content other than, hours. But I don't know if it's, head falling off running around, which I understand some of the panic. Like I get it. But again, just trying to take a step back and think about it analytically as it comes. New and different isn't always better and improved for this team. And you have done what we talked about, entering the draft for the most part, taking care of the immediate needs with serviceable players. We can maybe argue about Troutman. But either way, we'll move forward here. The defensive line, interior defensive line is one where obviously you have Wazirike last season, the contract. We'll see what happens with Savion Jones this season, but like, what was he, pick 100, pick 101? It's great that you took a shot them, but it's a calculated shot. It's kind of like when the Broncos, hopefully better results, but like you took McTelvin Najim right at the very end of the third round. I think another comp pick as well, or very close to it. Maybe he ends up being nothing, right? So like, it's good to have that calculated shot to hopefully develop, but there is no guarantee. So defensive line, and especially with how rotated it is too. Again, this is one where I'd love to bring in a veteran backup. However, I do wonder if it's something, especially with the pool they're playing in, Eric, maybe it is post-draft for some of these guys because they don't want to come in that OTAs period. Calais Campbell, Cam Jordan coming in, more closer to June, July versus, May, whenever OTAs. I think it's May. Yeah. But very much first round on the table, day 2 on the table. Could be a 1 technique, could be a 4-eye, 7 technique type-ish. Everything's on the table here. Again, it's another position. It's the most rotated position on the team. You need to be 10 deep, edge and interior defensive line, ideally. So talent. It should dictate. But you should always be elevated and hunting up front.
Yeah, I mean, defensive line, that's one of those positions where they still seem to be very active and at least gauging interest on the free agent market. And we'll see. And it's also another one where again trade. I doubt it's the case, but maybe they do that swing that make that big swing with the Eagles, but not for AJ Brown, but for Jalen Carter, who's very much available. I doubt they do it, but just throwing it out there as a possibility, anyways. But there's plenty of options they can go, and it is one where, with as you said, Cam Jordan or Calais Campbell, they're both 89 and 90 years old, and so they probably don't want to go through OTAs and mini camps and all that, all the May and early June stuff that they do. It's like they've done it for years and years and years of their career. Maybe they just want a little extra break here, and so it's probably that late July, August, early August kind of move that you had. There's still some other guys out there that are available on the defensive line, guys that you could probably still look at bringing now. And one thing too is why they may wait on defensive line. They are currently projected to get a 4th round comp pick. Now, 4th round for Denver has been terrible. They haven't had a single hit in the 4th round. Uwazurike has been serviceable.
I'd say Franklin's been a hit.
Not yet. I wouldn't call him a hit yet. He's very. I think he's right there with Uwazurike.
Yeah,
but
that's okay. ROI. I mean, so far for
not for me,
Franklin.
No. You got. I mean, it's been 1 year of Franklin. Now, if he does it a second year, all right.
Okay, that's fair.
Still an issue, but yeah. And then Uwazurike also has the gambling suspension, is why I'm not considering him it as well. A lot goes into it, and everybody's definition of a hit is different.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, 4th round hasn't been great, so betting on that 4th round comp pick isn't ideal. But that 4th round comp pick can also be traded. It can be used as a move up next year. It can be used for a veteran addition. So maybe they do want to play that comp pick game a little bit. And May 1st, that's when all players are no longer eligible for in the comp pick formula. So maybe it's sometime after that they would go and make that move there. It very well could be a situation where it's like, hey, we want you here. Let's get an agreement done, but we're not going to make it official until after May 1st because we want that comp pick. We want to make team better overall. So it's a lot of stuff on the table, a lot of moving pieces here, but defensive line is one that I very much expect Denver to be in on over the next few months.
Yeah, and I just scrolled through some of the Broncos' history drafting here. The last two, I would say, emphatic hits in the 4th round. You got Josie Jewell in the 4th round.
Before Peyton.
Yeah. I'm just saying, just looking just for context for you, not to correct you, just context for the chat, just how far back some guys, some names, 4th round. Josie Jewell was a hit, and then Julius Thomas was a hit as well, even though it's short term. That's a hit. 10 touchdowns. So we'll see. It is day 3. At the
I know you said you weren't coming. I was being just to be clear. I was talking about under George Payton.
Yeah,
since 2021.
Yep. I'd say right now Troy Franklin's on a good path.
He's on a good path, and I'd say Uwazurike, if he can build off of what he did last year, he's on a good path as well.
Yeah, and for 4th round, that's rookie contract. I mean, you're getting plus value, I would say, on both of those guys. Edge rusher, I always want to hunt superstars at edge, and I would never turn my nose up at adding somebody that I love in the room, especially because I think it's a deep class this season. But with the contract maneuvers of Jonathan Cooper, you maybe bring in somebody and move on from Ellis, but you're already kind of at a gluttony there at edge. So again, it's one of those positions where if I love a guy, I don't even care. We'll figure it out. But if you did, it'd probably be Ellis or Tillman on the way out. But I want to see more of Q as well. So probably a kick the can position there. But the board always dictates, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this actually is relevant. Talk coming in, is Cooper potential trade target? Not anymore. After he restructured his deal, that puts an end to any of and all trade talk involving him, just because they accelerated money from his base salary into a signing bonus, which now has to count as a dead cap hit against Denver. Unless another team decides to eat it, in which case, if they do that, then you're hurting your overall value in return. It's just not worth it. So if it's trade now, it is either Jonah Ellis or Dondre Tillman. And as you said, at that point, you're doing it because you still want to see more out of Key Robinson. Tillman, only reason why is because what he's done so far on such a cheap deal, there's positive value there. He's probably the most valuable edge rusher in the room because it's such a cheap deal. It's like 1.145 or something like that million. You can't beat value like that off the edge. As a 4th rusher, especially who's barely seen the field, some team could very well see like we can get even more value out of him as that 3rd edge rusher. And then Jonah Ellis still on a rookie contract with 2 years left. Injuries might, be a factor there, which also plays into why Tillman is an option. But there's avenues there for a trade. It just makes it the reason why you're making a trade is for Q Robinson, most likely, unless you do add that guy, in which case Q Robinson's still that fifth guy. And if somebody falls, you still pull the trigger on it. So
yeah, it's just so talented. I mean, oh no, my steak is too juicy, my lobster too buttery. That's too many good edge rushers. Linebacker, of course, it's a position, and I would put this one if you are keeping, Greenlaw. I think it'd be a little bit more elevated. But Singleton has had injuries. He's going to be, 33, 34 years old. Stranada's not young either, and it sounds like Drew Sanders they are out on. I know that some people are excited about Reed and Bailey, but I think you're probably talking practice squad, borderline roster, special teams there. So linebacker is one that you're not rotating that position typically very much. What we saw last season from Denver isn't typical. Getting Greenlaw out there is because Stranad played so well, and Greenlaw, again, of course, injured. But linebacker is one where there's definitely a path for immediate not immediate, but there's a pathway where it's going to be a really important position for you because there's an injury, and long term also you need obviously somebody you want to draft and develop there.
Yeah, I mean, Karina Reed, he seems to be that Drew Sanders replacement, that special teams depth linebacker. Lavelle Bailey, also a special teams downhill linebacker. Dre Greenlaw was a failed pick. They were betting on him in coverage a little bit more. Injuries kind of derailed that, and he just, even when he got healthy, he was not the same in coverage. He was not the same kind of quick, better athlete player that he was in San Francisco. It looks like his time in coverage is coming to an end. Still very good working downhill, and he showed that against the Houston Texans. So Justin Stroud, Alex Singleton, you still probably are looking for that third guy behind him, especially with Singleton's deal, 2 years. Draft a guy, have him be that third linebacker. It's not easy, but you could even move on from Singleton after this year. It's not the best structure for that with that contract, but it's doable. So linebacker, adding somebody young, even if it's a younger free agent at this point, to add some depth competition there, that's doable as well, and still draft a guy. I would be surprised if Denver doesn't draft a linebacker this year just because of how good of a linebacker class it is.
Got to bring in somebody, ideally. Cornerback we talked about too is an odd one, Eric. God, Broncos country would lose their mind. But day 2, day 3, I mean, you're looking for somebody to maybe come in and offer a little bit of depth versatility. Maybe somebody who wears a lot of different hats. That can be a slot or a safety type as well. That's certainly on the table. The real question is, what do they actually think internally about Barron at this point? I mean, obviously they say things, but they've got eyes on him and saw his development and everything much more than we did this season. So what do they think about Barron? Is he going to be more of that slot safety? Is he going to be a boundary cornerback? And then attached to that, what are the plans with McMillan and Moss? Both gone, one back. So cornerback is really fascinating for this team because people will lose their minds if they take one early. But there's an argument for it, as we rehashed, I think 3 weeks ago, Eric, spending 15 minutes talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, what do they do with Moss? Do they trade him during the draft, which is entirely a possibility? Do they trade him prior to roster cutdowns? I think part of the issue here is what they did with Barron as a rookie, especially when Singleton got hurt. They were really primarily focusing in on him on working in the nickel, and then Singleton gets hurt, or not Singleton, Surtain gets hurt, and they turn to Chris Havens-Drain on the outside. But then not long after that, we see Barron as an outside corner. Well, then he should have been playing him there when Surtain was hurt and seeing what he could do as an outside corner instead of using him as this kind of dime safety that they were, this dime defensive back. So they really made things difficult for themselves in the evaluation phase and seeing what they could get out of him in that role they like. Maybe they do still see him as a nickel, and Jaquan McMillan is the guy that's on the move. Even though they put a second-round tender on him, it doesn't lock him in Denver long-term. It's not a long-term deal. It's a 1-year deal that if he gets traded, guess what? They now take all of that. Yeah. So there's still plenty of options here. Chris Abrams-Drain is also on the last year of his deal. Right? So, no, he has 2 more years left. And I think this last year when he was out there, it made it very clear he's not exactly a fit for what Denver wants out of their corners. He's a fine depth piece, not a starter quality guy. The lack of physicality is an issue. So corner, it would upset a lot of Broncos fans, but if they really do have eyes on moving on from Moss and McMillan, corner early, yeah, I could really see it. And if they do take one, I'm willing to bet that's their plan, is moving Moss and McMillan probably either at the trade deadline, maybe right before the season, or just letting them walk in free agency next year.
I don't know if Tony's talking about taking a cornerback day one, but man, people would lose their minds. And then the last one, Eric, which is definitely up there because you've hinted at it as well. Safety, Hufanga's had a lot of injuries. You lost PJ Locke. We like Key and Skinner as special teams, but the play on defense has been erratic. I guess we'll put it that way. And Brandon Jones, I mean, we talked about it, the injuries, the contract, it all lines up. Also, Denver round one, Dylan Theineman. I don't know. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I really like Stukes, who's kind of a slot safety hybrid from Arizona. Man, that guy, if you're going to be playing nickel as your base, you better have demons who tackle out there. And Stukes brings pain. I really like Stukes, Eric. So safety's way up there as well. I mean, it's a good thing, I guess, for the Broncos, but the 4 least valuable positions on the field, in my opinion, excluding interior offensive line, are the 4 positions where it's like Denver probably needs a long-term development guy in the least to draft, and it's very much in play the mid-rounds. Now, round one, I typically like to lean a little bit more. I can't find quality players in free agency this way, so offensive tackle, pass rusher, wide receiver, cornerback, but not to the point where you're bypassing better graded talent on the board as well. Like tiebreakers, sure. Vertical or your horizontal board, sure. But safety, linebacker, running back, tight end, all positions where it's like, we can take the field next year, but 2027, 2028, like we need some cost control options that we develop internally, ideally.
Yeah. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Dylan Theineman, AJ Halsey, Traden Stukes. Like they have a lot of options there in the first, second, and even third round. This is actually a really good safety class. Like it's been talked about, but when I really dug into it in late January or early February, I was surprised at how good this safety class is. Like there is a lot of good options in it. And some talent's going to get pushed down. So Brandon Jones, as you said, I 80%, 90% think that he's probably played his last down in Denver. Just with the injury in the contract, with how it lines up, I think Denver really wants to go get somebody. I mean, he's not old, but I think maybe the injury was worse than we've been made to believe. But there seems to be concern there. And it's not like his play was great before the injury this last year. He was really struggling with having to cover for the linebackers in coverage. And I think his play in 2024 was a little bit overblown because he did generate, I think, 3 takeaways and had a forced fumble in there as well. But there were a lot of issues from down to down consistency. Part of that was how he was used. Part of that is why they went and got Hufanga, who has injury concerns. So safety is one where I would not be shocked at all if they go safety in the first round. And I'm actually kind of on that point of, I think that one of their first 3 picks is a safety.
You heard it there, folks. Jim asked him, why didn't we get him? We brought some people back. We'll see how it plays out. Jim, we talked about that a lot to start the show, so you can go back, but we got to go. We went over kids up, and I want to be supportive, and we're really bad, and I'm sure Eric has to use the bathroom and say bye as well. So appreciate everybody, just like me. So appreciate everyone. Make sure you're following Eric and I on Twitter, at Eric Trickle, at Nick Kendall, MHH. We're also at Mile High Huddle, Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And as the ticker says underneath, please subscribe, like, and share. Shout out to our super chat givers as well. Trace, Troy with the $50. God bless you. Camden, $10. You guys are all killing it. We appreciate you. Eric, we'll see you again Friday. I'm going to let you go. Have a good one, everybody. Happy Monday. Go Broncos.